Hello everyone and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So these are the articles that we will be discussing today. So the first one is from The Hindu, which is titled as Towards Inclusive Syllabi. Basically, this is a very interesting topic and specifically holds importance for our essay exam. And this actually talks about the point that especially in the history syllabus that is being taught to the students, it is not inclusive and it does not really talk about the entire history of the Indian subcontinent, and that should be done to increase the value of it. And secondly, challenge at home from abroad. This article talks about the threat that India is facing due to the Islamic State or due to the growing roots of terrorism into our own territory. So what are the causes of that and how can we actually deal with this issue has been discussed in this article. And thirdly, in News and Flash column, we'll be discussing the small pointer news which is important specifically for our prelims exam. Before that, let's have a look at the LawSikho courses that we have for you. So the lot of the courses, which is Judiciary Test Prep course, is one amazing course which you can definitely have a look at. The link is there in the description box and you can download free study material from there. There are other courses as well, and we are very shortly coming up with the law optional course as well, so you can enroll in that too. So the MCQ for the day is, the Ahom dynasty ruled in present day North India, South India, Northeast India or Central India. So you have to write down the answer in the comment section if you know the answer to this question. So here, instead of descriptive question for the day today, as one of our topics is really important for our essay as well, so we will be discussing this potential essay question. It can be, schools are the foundation of learning. So in this, you have to discuss about how the schools are important in shaping the personality of an individual, what are the issues that the schools are facing in India, and what can be the better steps that can be taken in this regard, and so on. An all-encompassing essay must be written in this regard. So this should be, the word limit should be maximum 1200 to 1500 words and not more than that. With this, let's start with the first article for the day, which talks about the history curriculum. Basically, the point here in the article that has been written is that class 7 students in India are required to study 6 out of 12 total chapters in the history book on Delhi Sultanate and the Mughal Empire, but only half of the chapters they cover the Vijayanagar Empire, which is one of the most important kingdoms, when we talk about South India. Basically, the entire concern that comes in this article is that the very policy or the very scheme or system that we are following, especially in our history textbooks, in our class 6, 7th, 8th textbooks, what we're trying to do is that we focus on the issues that are more related to the northern part of India and other all areas, be it the northeastern part or be it the southern area, which actually have given so much to our art, architecture, culture, and even the entire development of India as a nation. But still, they and their efforts have not been mentioned in the textbooks of the history textbooks of the students. And out of 12 chapters in the 7th class, 6 talk about Delhi Sultanate and Mughal Empire, which actually were focused totally on the northern part of India, and also the life and the entire cycle of the indigenous kings have not been focused enough. So moreover, chapters related to Ahoms, or known as the Thai Ahom, and Northeast are completely ignored. So hopefully this might be like really quick that you have your answer now. So basically, Ahoms was one of the very influential dynasties that ruled in the northeastern part of India. So there is absolutely no mention about Ahoms in any of the history books in our syllabus. So basically, the very idea here to bring into the syllabus is not actually to give importance to one area over the other area, but to make a student aware of the heterogeneous culture and also the heterogeneous value that our nation holds. And only if he will be studying about the northern part of our country, he definitely will feel separated from the southern part, and either ways. So if in a way you are only trying to make your child acquainted with a particular concept that belongs to a particular limited area, obviously he might have lack of knowledge, or in many situations kind of taboo as well when it comes to the culture and this systems of other areas. And that is why it is really important that at least while we are studying history as a discipline, we try to understand the history of India as a whole, because obviously what we see India as today, it is a result not only the history that took part in the northern India, rather in all the parts of India, be it western, eastern, northeastern, southern, central, or be it any part of our country. And that is why, to have an equal eye at all of these areas, it is important that the students are given equal access to study the history of all the regions that are there in India. So basically, let's discuss that what are the steps that can be taken to improve the system of the curriculum. Firstly, oral traditions can be discussed, like African, South American, and Asian consider it as valid proof. So simply when one-to-one interaction and through stories, movies, and such interactions can be done between the teacher and the students, and these oral traditions or oral discussions through oral traditions can be done. Of the oral traditions can be thought to be very interesting even for the students to conceive. Secondly, start with history that is closer to the child. So basically, instead of, the author here suggests that instead of having one book for the entire nation, what we can do is that we can divide it into regions. And firstly, as a primary step, we focus on the history that is geographically closer to that student who is learning, so that he can, in a better way, he can relate himself to this area. For example, if a person belongs to Gujarat or the states that fall in the western part of the country, so the discussion about the kings, like for example the Rashtrakuts or the kings that actually existed in this area can be discussed. So basically, the Rashtrakuts, they actually dominated the parts of Maharashtra and western side of that. And for Gujarat, the entire study of the Matrika dynasty, or even that the Rajputs that we had in Rajasthan, they can all be studied, and even Solankis. So in such a way, if we try to start the education of the child of the history with the area that he firstly belongs to, will actually make him connect easier. And then later on, we can expand the entire scope to the whole of India. Thirdly, incorporate chapters for each state. Like for example, Tamil Nadu, it should be, the chapters that relate to Tamil Nadu should be discussing about the Pandya dynasty, which was one of the most prominent dynasties and one of the longest dynasties that survived in Tamil Nadu. For Kerala, it should be about the Kulshekharas, and Andhra Pradesh, it should be about the Kakatiyas. So these are very important dynasties that ruled here. And here, specific chapters should be there, state-wise chapters that actually make the person more understand, it makes them easier for them to understand the concepts. Fourthly, incorporate chapters on cultural history in medieval times, like art forms, dance, architecture, etc. And fifthly, implement a local history project if region has medieval remains. So actually, people or the students can be taken to these areas to see in live these architectures and these buildings, forts, etc., so that they can absorb the idea in a better manner. And sixthly, incorporate chapter on literature across the states, which is again very important to understand the importance of local literature and the local languages that we have. So this basically was the areas. This was the area of the Kakatiyas. Here were the Pandyas and Cholas and Chalukyas, Holseyas. So these are all very important dynasties from the South India, which should have a considerable mention in our history textbooks. Now, next article talks about the Islamic State threat to India. Now, as we know that Islamic State, or we generally even know as the ISIS, which was the Islamic State of Iran and Syria. So basically, this has also expanded its reach to the Indian subcontinent as well. And this threat has been brought to the eyes of Indian authority, as according to the 26th report of the United Nations Analytical Support on Sanction Monitoring Team, it says that there are around 180 to 200 members of Hind Vilaya in Kerala and Karnataka. Basically, Hind Vilaya is considered to be as a parallel body running to the Islamic State, just the Indian version of the Islamic State. So it says that around 180 to 200 members of the Hind Vilaya are still there in Kerala and Karnataka, and approximately 150 to 200 members of the Al-Qaeda are there in India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Pakistan. So in a way, as compared to the whole population that actually lives in these countries, this number could be seen to be very small. But obviously, the potential of hazard or the potential of harm that even these little number of people or terrorists can cause, or the members of these groups can cause to the entire humanity, all of us have many times unfortunately seen this in the history as well. So recently, a suspected IS, that is Islamic State operative, was arrested in New Delhi with 15 kgs of IEDs. So IEDs, basically, it is the improvised explosive devices, which are, in a way, this is one of the most important ingredient that is used for making of any kind of bombs. So one suspect has been already arrested in Delhi. Let's see that what are the Islamic States, what is the Islamic State's presence in the Indian subcontinent? What is the scenario? So in 2019, IS announced formation of its Indian province, which we are calling it as the Valaya of Hind, or the Hind Valaya. Then in February 2020, just recently, the National Investigation Agency conducted searches at 15 locations in Karnataka and filed charge sheet against 17 IS suspects in June. Then March 2020, 27 Sikhs were killed in an attack on Gurudwara in Afghanistan, and Muhammad Muhsin from Kasaragod district of Kerala was among the terrorists. Now, IS's Kerala and Karnataka connection. Now, one thing that some might have sparked our mind is that when we're talking about the IS thing and the Islamic State, which is there in Iraq and Syria, and then its counterpart there in Hind Vilaya as the Hind Vilaya in India, why amongst all the states that we have in India, Kerala and Karnataka have the highest number of these members or terrorists, giving space to these people? So why only these two states are at the specific area for these members of these groups to stay? Basically, Kerala and Karnataka, both these states have had a very long historical relation with the areas of the Middle East. So firstly, both the states are relatively prosperous with strong social and community networks, firstly. And secondly, historically, Islam has a deep cultural and social roots in Kerala. Thirdly, they constitute the largest share of Indians in the Gulf. Now, as we know that Kerala and Karnataka, there the religions that are mostly followed are, one, Christianity is also one of the most prominent religions, and Islam also is one of the very prominent religions due to its historical transactions that actually took place between these two areas and the Middle East. So as we know that Kerala falls on the western bank of, or the western side of India, the west coast of India. So that is why whenever anybody was traveling from the side of Middle East towards the southern side of India, Kerala was the very first state that they actually entered India through. So that is why it was a very favorite, destination for them, and that is why through historical times as well, the population of Muslims in the these states is more significant, and also in even the Gulf countries, the people coming out from Kerala and Karnataka form the highest number of the ratio as total Indians. Now here, it should never be understood that since they are Muslims or they belong to Islam or follow Islam, that is why they're inclined towards terrorism. Definitely that cannot be the case, and generalization can never be a good solution. It's just that many a times when you belong to a particular community, a particular caste or a particular religion, you tend to get more inclined towards the so-called issues that they are facing. And definitely due to your emotional weakness, it is very easy for you, for them to actually manipulate you or to brainwash you. That is the only situation. Like for example, in any case, if there is any riot between Hindu or Muslims or Sikh or Muslims or any other kind of community, caste, etc., what do you think? The people who participate in these riots, do they actually hate each other or something like that? It's really not the situation. Just that for issues as sensitive and as pious as religion that we consider, people tend to get very emotional, and that is why at times it becomes really very easy to brainwash such people. And that is why it is a more of tendency that the IS, that is the Islamic State, is targeting the areas or the states of Karnataka and Kerala in India and not any other states, because they know that the Muslim population in these states is higher, and that is why if we would make an attempt, we would be able to brainwash these people. So we as citizens have this responsibility that we create love and harmony and peace amongst every religion, amongst every caste, community and every individual. So this really is important. So apart from this news analysis, I would really take this opportunity to convey this message to you all, that no religion teaches or preaches violence. So if any person follows even his or her religion, with due regards and with complete, respect, and even if that person is an atheist and does not follow any religion and still believes in the institution of humanity, there would be no person who would want to harm other person or other being for that matter. And those who think that they're killing somebody in the name of their religion, they actually are just doing it for their own purpose or own satisfaction. There is nothing that they're offering to their God. So this should be kept in mind, and we as responsible citizens should make sure that such hate crimes or such hate activities do not prevail in our civil society. And lastly, as we are seeing that one of the steps also, it was one of the steps that we can take. So firstly, strong public policy and diplomatic ties should be there in order to curb any kind of problem that occurs in the future. Like for example, if there is any issue that arises between Iran and India due to this issue, or even if we are specifically talking about the ISIS, then between Syria and India, or Iraq or Syria, or any other Gulf country for that matter, it is desirable that India has strong policy framework and strong diplomatic ties with that nation, so that good and coherent steps can be taken to curb this issue. Second, strengthen the intelligence system to get early warnings and better sharing among nations. So it is like less, you cannot emphasize enough on this, because obviously you definitely need to have a strong intelligence system so that you can actually tap such problems even before any to say harm occurs. Thirdly, law enforcement agencies should enforce the law without discriminations, but obviously. And fourthly, neutral politics in terms of ideology or vote bank. So this was all for today. The main articles were these, and finally it is us as citizens who can actually make and bring a difference in this situation. So let's see, what do we have for news in flash today. Firstly, SGX Nifty in Gujarat. The government has eased regulatory norms to propose special purpose vehicle to bring onshore trading activity on the SGX Nifty. Basically, SGX Nifty is a derivative on the NSE's Nifty index, which is traded on Singapore Stock Exchange. So basically, the NSE is the National Stock Exchange. Secondly, G20 principles on cross-border movement. In the G20 foreign ministers meeting, India proposed development of voluntary G20 principles on coordinated cross-border movement of people. So the principle comprise of three main elements. First, standardization of testing procedures and universal acceptability of test results. Second, standardization of quarantine procedures. And thirdly, standardization of movement and transit protocol. So basically, this entire step has been taken in order to maintain a very easy and uninterrupted flow of people and resources, because in the time of COVID-19, definitely traveling is not such one of the things that people are very readily doing. So in that case, it should be made safe and secure for all the people, like for all the countries, the ones from where they are traveling and the ones where to they are traveling, right? So this was for this. And for the third point, GW 19521 signal. So this actually might sound to be a bit technical in nature. So basically, this is billions of years ago, a collision between two black holes took place, and it sent gravitational waves rippling through the universe. So this is actually known as the GW 19521 signal. So a prelims question might be asked that what actually do you mean by this number? So you should know that this is one of a kind of signals that has been coming from the collision that occurred. So two black holes, they collided and they formed one huge black hole. So in 2019, signals from these waves were detected in the Gravitational Wave Observatory, LIGO in universe, and the detector Virgo in Italy. So this is a signal. We should remember the name of the signal. And basically, a black hole is nothing but these are just vast bodies in a way. It is not actually a concrete body, but this is a vast area which has a very, very strong gravitational pull. It exists in the outer space, and the gravitational pull in these black holes is so dense, so immense, that even light cannot escape through these holes. So this should be known, that what actually is a black hole and what are these signals. So this was all for today. We hope it was a good session for you. Stay tuned with us for such more sessions to come. Thank you so much.